And we just want to say good morning and welcome to our wonderful friends, our viewers on GBN's Channel 7 and Channel 11, Channel 20 if you are in cable. You also, for those of you also following us online at www.gbn.gd or via our Facebook feed, we say good morning to you. Those of you that's on Facebook as well, or via our YouTube channel. My first guest this morning, as I would have indicated to you, my first guest this morning is Jason Phillip, and we'll be speaking specifically, well, he is the president of the Grenada Poultry Association, and we'll be taking a look, just delving, trying to get in and take a little bit of an introspection into what's happening in the Poultry Association, so at least we can give you an appreciation of that industry this morning. So I want to say good morning and welcome Jason to the conversation. We're keeping our eyes on the clock. He's just over 13. Well, there he is. Good morning, Jason. Welcome to the conversation. How are you? Okay, but here's what we're gonna do. 15. Not know what's wrong with me. It's not 50 minutes past the hour. It's 4 minutes gone past the hour. We'll take a quick commercial break, and then I'll be right back with you as we delve into the conversation. Jason Phillip, and of course, you'll be speaking in the capacity as president of the Grenada Poultry Association. Quick commercial break, and I'll be right back with you.
Greetings everyone. I hope this message meets you and yours in the best of health as we join in encouraging all to act responsibly.
COVID-19 presents the most serious
and deadly challenge
any of us will experience in our lifetimes.
We must act now.
We need to keep the Caribbean safe.
We can all help to stop the spread of the coronavirus. Please stay at home.
So Caribbean people, please stay home.
Caribbean people, please stay at home.
Please stay home. It's that simple. This too shall pass, but for now, stay home.
Stay in your yard. Stay home, stay safe.
The Grenada Food and Nutrition Council remind you to boost your immune system and give yourself a fighting chance against COVID-19. Consume foods that are rich in vitamin C, like fruits and vegetables. For example, oranges, grapefruit, mandarin, lemon, spinach, cabbage, and tomatoes. Vitamin B6 and folic acid that is found in chicken, turkey, fish, grain foods like oats, bread, local provisions, dry beans, and peas. Another immune system booster is vitamin E, found in nuts, corn, sunflower or canola oils, and leafy vegetables like spinach, broccoli, and kale. Iron, zinc, and vitamin D are also important to strengthen your immunity. So try foods like lean meats, eggs, lentils, mackerel, tuna, and jacks. Our local spices, ginger, clove, and turmeric, among others, can help decrease inflammation and support the immune system. Remember to practice safe food handling. A message from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council, reminding you that a strong immune system is one of the best ways to fight COVID-19. The following are a list of food items to have on hand amidst COVID-19. Perishables like vegetables, fruits, provisions, and eggs. You are advised to stock perishable items to last up to 2 weeks. Non-perishable items including dry goods like cereals, flour, cornmeal, oats, rice, pasta, nuts and nut butters like peanut butter, crackers, canned or frozen meats, ready-to-eat canned canned meats, powdered or canned milk, dried peas and beans, canned fruits in natural juices, 100% canned fruit juices, and canned vegetables. You can stock non-perishable food items to last up to 1 month. Store bottled or clean drinking water, 1 gallon or more per day per person. If you suffer from a medical condition, have prescribed medications on hand. A message from the Grenada Food and Nutrition Council as we battle COVID-19.
5 things you need to know about self-isolation. Stay home. If you are told to self-isolate, it means staying at home, not going to work, school, or other public places, and you should not have any visitors. Separate yourself. If you live with others, then you need to stay in a well-ventilated bedroom with the door shut. If you have to share a bathroom, then use it after everyone else. Don't share towels and toiletries, as this may put others at risk. Call ahead. If you develop symptoms such as a fever or cough, then seek advice first by calling the Ministry of Health's hotline at 538-4787 or 458-4787. Please do not show up at a medical center or hospital, as this may put others at risk. Take care with waste. If you test positive, your waste should be double bagged and disposed of separately. Create a buddy system. If you live on your own, you can plan with friends and family to check in with each other and run essential errands if one becomes sick. Once sick, they should leave groceries on the doorstep. Why it's important. COVID-19 causes a mild illness for 4 out of 5 persons. Self-isolating will help protect the older generation and those who may have underlying health problems from getting infected.
We know that for many people, life is changing dramatically. My family is no different. My daughter is now taking her classes online from home because her school is closed. For the rest of the world, that even the most severe situation can be turned around. But the experience of cities and countries that have pushed back this virus give hope and courage to the rest of the world. During this difficult time, it's important to continue looking after your physical and mental health. This will not only help you in the long term. First, eat a healthy and nutritious diet, which helps your immune system to function properly. Second, limit your alcohol consumption and avoid sugary drinks. Third, don't smoke. Smoking can increase your risk of developing severe disease if you become infected with COVID-19. Fourth, exercise. WHO recommends 30 minutes of physical activity a day for adults and 1 hour a day for children. If your local or national guidelines allow it, go outside for a walk, a run or a run.
Richie for you in the morning time, taking the music down. 10 minutes gone past the hour in the morning. Just for the purpose of those of you lower listeners and the reviewers, I know I did intimate to you that I'll be speaking first with Jason Phillip of the Grenada Poultry Association. We're just going to, of course, change the programming lineup just a bit, and I'll be speaking first with Mr. Karl Duckworth, and he's the principal officer at the U.S. Embassy Grenada, and certainly we'll be focusing the conversation on the protest action that has been taking place across the U.S. and Black Lives Movement, and not just across the U.S. It's a conversation that has extended itself to the greater part, the world at large, right? So I want to say good morning, and good morning, Karl. How are you? Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Joseph, and a big good morning to Grenada. It's been too long since I've been on GBN.
I agree, no doubt. It seems though it has been quite a while. Let me ask you though, how has the COVID been? How have you survived COVID-19 there in the interim?
No, I'm here with my family, my wife and 3 children, and we stayed at home. We practiced social distancing, and there's nowhere else that I'd rather be than here in Grenada.
You've put it. I think there's few people that would probably disagree with you. Now,
I mean, the people of Grenada have really come together and supported the social distancing, and I think the government has done such a great job at protecting its borders. And we're one of the last in the world that had a case of COVID. So.
No doubt about that. While we are in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic, it's almost like saying insult has been added to injury, with, of course, the killing of George Floyd, and stemming out of that, protest action across the U.S. And right. Those protest action has again brought to the fore the Black Lives Movement. Your thoughts on what has and what continues to play itself out on the international front, stemming directly and from other incidents that has a racial tone to it in the U.S.
Well, it's a big topic. The death of George Floyd was a tragedy. And as we approach our July 4th, our Independence Day, it's time for us as a country to reflect on a whole host of issues. And that includes racism, it includes the use of force by those in authority. It encompasses equality. And this is not just an issue in the United States, it's an issue in many countries. But right now, of course, I think the world is really focused on the United States. And I think it's, I think in the United States, even a year ago, that what you see playing out on the news and in the streets, I don't know that it would have been even taken as seriously even a year ago. But it's really brought up some serious issues, and I think it just, and people are out there expressing themselves. And if I may, I'd actually like to focus for a second here in Grenada. The week before last, we had some protests outside of the U.S. Embassy, and I want to recognize their peaceful nature. We had almost a whole week, and I think on a fairly large one, about 153, 154 people on a Saturday, and they were out there and they were passionate. I had a chance to see Mr. Killa's, again, very passionate speech, but also his video that he dropped that same day on We Want Justice. Again, a very passionate, moving video. I had the chance to talk to Mr. Edwin, who was one of the organizers of the protest outside the embassy. And again, we had a chance to talk about these exact same issues that we're talking about now. And again, I think this is a time for everyone in the United States to reflect on what's important, to reflect on each other.
And it is quite important that the issue of race, the race issue, isn't necessarily one that is, it isn't new in the U.S. And I'm saying that on the backdrop because you did, of course, mention the fact that the 4th of July, the U.S.'s independence is just around the corner. Understanding the history and the birth of the U.S., without delving into the specifics of it, the 4th of July this year, I'm getting a sense that it will take on greater significance across the U.S., you think?
I think so. And again, balancing the COVID measures, versus what we see going on in the streets. I mean, the idea of the birth of our country is that it is independence for all, not just for a select group of people. And I think that's absolutely, that's been, I hope it's part of the conversation as we move forward. I mean, I will say that I think our country has incrementally and progressively gotten better over time. But frankly, there's still more work to do, as you can frankly see playing out on CNN and in the streets. So again, I hope that, just as you said, everybody takes a moment to reflect on what Independence Day means. And frankly, as we go toward November and presidential elections in the United States, I think there's going to be a lot of people thinking about the importance of voting and what that means.
I think certainly that is an exercise that people should not take too lightly. We did make reference to, while there was protest action in the U.S., here at home, the Black Lives Movement has taken on its own local formation, its own local spirit. Looking at what's happening here locally, and of course, looking at what the U.S.'s role here at home in Grenada and across the region, some have questioned whether or not we'll see any change, any reduction, or notwithstanding what has happened, can we assume that the U.S. remains totally committed to its involvement in Grenada across the region?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a fantastic question. I think it's a testament to the strong relationship between Grenada and the United States that we have our own embassy here in Grenada. If you look at a lot of the other Eastern Caribbean countries, that's not true. They're all serviced out of Bridgetown, Barbados, U.S. Embassy. So I think, again, there's so many linkages between Grenada and the United States. And the Eastern Caribbean as a whole, I mean, right now is June, and we're in basically in U.S. Caribbean Heritage Month, where we celebrate the more than 4 million members of the diaspora and the Caribbean community in the United States. I have a chance in my capacity at the embassy to talk to Grenadians every single day, and many of whom are dual citizens. And I know the linkages with the United States are very, very strong, especially if I may point out New York City, where so many Grenadians live. And I'm originally from Philadelphia, which is only a few hours outside of New York City.
Philly boy, eh?
So, yeah, I'm a Philly boy. And those East Coast linkages are so strong. And I think during COVID, I mean, I think was a good example. Right before COVID, of course, we had the visit of the U.S. naval ship Comfort, which actually provided medical care to about 5% of the population of Grenada. And I think that's a tremendous number. But also during COVID, we provided 2,000 testing kits. We provided to the Eastern Caribbean more than $3 million in assistance for fighting COVID. Usually the U.S. works through basically regional agencies. We don't often do kind of direct government-to-government transfers, even though we do something. But you can see our fingerprints on a lot of the regional support during the COVID crisis. And I hope, again, during my time here, to increase those linkages, and especially in the public diplomacy, the people-to-people programs. And as it stands, I actually have an announcement to make, too, if I may.
Sure.
We were actually offering, during June, a Women in Politics program that is open right now as we speak, to women who want to get more involved in activism and politics. And they can go to U.S. Embassy Bridgetown's website and the application there and instructions. But these are the kind of programs that we really want to use to increase relationships between our peoples and frankly, our interdependence.
Let me ask you, Karl, because we spoke to it a bit early in the conversation, the peaceful protest that took place here. We all agree that we grew up in a society where democracy is the order of the day. We grew up appreciating the right to voice our sense of dissent, our concerns with what's happening in the society. What lesson, though? Because in the U.S., a lot of the protest action was marred with cases of violence, vandalism, and the such. What lesson can be learned out of what took place here in Grenada? While small in numbers, what's the bigger picture, the bigger lesson that can be taken away?
Well, I'll say to the United States, I absolutely understand that people are angry. People have been calling for change for quite some time, and it may be slower than some people would like. However, I think the cases of violence and looting are fairly counterproductive to what the majority of the people who are protesting and want their voices heard. I think it's counterproductive to that. And again, whether that's here in Grenada or anywhere around the world, I'm personally a huge fan of our First Amendment, our right to free speech and demonstration for the things you believe in. We have freedom, the freedom of the job that you do is such an important role. You, as a journalist, you bring your attention and light on issues that need to be exposed. So thank you for that. These are all encompassed in our First Amendment. And I think that's an important thing around the world. I've served in many, many countries. I think, Grenada has it right. Again, the demonstrations that I saw were very peaceful, were very passionate. I sat and watched, again, the Mr. Killer video with my family, and many things that we're seeing on air, on CNN, have created conversations, but that video also, especially when he posted the faces of the people who've been killed, caused conversations. And I think that's what are needed. I think what are needed are conversations.
Let me ask you, because I know we're running out of time, how do you see this conversation, the issue of the race portfolio that plays itself out so many times? We've had the civil rights movement. We go back to the Rodney King in LA. We've had different shootings, different incidents across the U.S. We hear that there is a call for reform. One of the low points, though, is that some have actually intimated that they have not gotten the strong, forceful response from the administration that they thought would have been needed to deal with what is arguable a systematic issue in the U.S.
These are tough issues. No, I hear what you're saying. They're tough issues, and these cases have gone back, like many administrations, both on the Democratic and Republican side, these issues. But I hope that these things have gotten better over time. If you look at history as a continuum, through Jim Crow, through the Civil Rights Movement, and on, and I hope we continue that upward trajectory. I cannot sit here and say where the future will bring us or what those answers might be, but I think, like as you're seeing right now playing out, those conversations are absolutely happening. If you watch CNN International, some of the other news stations, that's all there is. It's all these discussions on what is now, what has been, and what should be. And I think this is, again, as the elections play out, this is where people can not only be heard in a public square, but can be heard by voting. You mentioned before, I think in the United States, the number hovers around for presidential elections, less than 50% of people vote. I would encourage anybody who's here in Grenada, who's a U.S. citizen, vote. Exercise your power.
Indeed. I mean, while one of your rights might be taken away, those that you still have access to, I agree that you should take charge of it. My final question to you, and then you can always wrap it. You can always give me a wrap as we run out of time. Are you fearful, though, Karl, that the conversation, there's a huge appetite for it in the U.S. now, the U.S. media across the world, because it's a heated conversation. But do you get the sense as we draw closer to November, we have the increase in cases of COVID-19 in more than 5 states across the U.S. Do you get the sense, or are you having a sense of apprehension that the Black Lives Movement, the conversation for reform, that is going to get diluted and somehow disappear in the heat of the election and everything else that's happening across the world?
I mean, there's no doubt that COVID-19 has, basically effectively changed the dynamics in the United States and around the world, over these many months. And we can see that here, we can see it in the United States. I think, though, that the movements you're seeing in the United States have reached such a level, such a point that they're impossible to ignore. Again, I think a year ago, we might have been able to, or people may have been able to ignore it or think this will pass. But I think right now it's so widespread, and there's so many calls. There's so many voices crying out right now. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. Again, we're not that many months away from the election. So I don't think either COVID or the elections will cause this issue to go away. I think it's now time for the United States as a people to have this conversation.
We're keeping on the clock. Any final words before we part?
There is one thing I would like to mention too. So during COVID, one of the things that we noticed, so one of our jobs is to help people in Grenada during a time of emergency get back to the United States. And as you know, the airport was closed, and we had many people here who had tickets, but the airport was closed. One of the biggest, we were able to communicate effectively with many of them. The ones that were the hardest were actually the dual citizens, Grenadian citizens who live here in Grenada or here for extended periods of time. What I'd like to do, especially as we enter hurricane season, to encourage all any dual citizens, who have U.S. citizenship or green card holders who are here in Grenada to go to STEP, that's the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, step.state.gov, and that's the way that we communicate with all of our citizens here in Grenada. And I think that's especially important as we go toward hurricane season. I think during COVID, a lot of people call the embassy, and we're a really small embassy. And unfortunately, it was kind of hit or miss whether they could get a hold of anybody. But that's, if they go there, they'll have all the latest information. And that has to do with demonstrations, that has to do with emergency preparedness, et cetera. So, and we'll also send out a note, of course, as soon as the airport opens up to all U.S. citizens here. So step.state.gov.
Thank you very much. Karl Duckworth is the principal officer attached here with the U.S. Embassy here right at home. Thank you, sir, and all the best to you and to your family.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your time.
Okay,
have a great day.
Okay, Philly boy. Have a great one, sir.
Thank you.
It's just about 29 minutes gone by the hour. We're going to take a quick commercial break, really quick one, Timon. And when we come back, we're going to speak, and we continue our conversation. We're not continuing. I'll be starting my conversation with President of the Grenada Poultry Association, that is Jason Phillip. Quick commercial break.
We believe this new virus spreads mostly from person to person through respiratory droplets produced when someone who is sick coughs or sneezes. This is similar to how flu and other respiratory illnesses spread. These droplets can land in the mouth or nose of people nearby, or possibly be inhaled into the lungs. Most person-to-person spread happens when people are in close contact. It's also possible that this virus can spread when someone touches a contaminated surface and then touches the mouth, nose, or eyes.
The speed on what's happening in the poultry industry. Again, welcome back to those of viewers on GBN's Channel 7 and Channel 11, and those of you following us through whatever other platforms that there is. In the heat of COVID-19, there's always a conversation about our food import bills. We've been increased. We hear this so often as to the high volume of poultry intake and how much we order from outside. But in recent times, there's been a thrust, and that is hinged on the whole conversation of being more self-sufficient. And certainly the Poultry Association has been leading the cause, the charge, in as best as possible as they can to ensure that we provide our populace with good, healthy, consumable chicken. And certainly I want to say good morning and welcome to Jason Phillip, who is the president of the local association. Good morning, Jason, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Joseph, and thank you for having me. Good morning to all of Grenada, Caribou, and Vitimad.
There's been, give me a sense as to where the Poultry Association is locally. I know there's been a concerted effort to consolidate and ensure that Grenada becomes self-sufficient, not just in terms of poultry, but everything else. But give me this appreciation for where the association is at this time in terms of its involvement and its role.
Okay, well, just to clarify that poultry is a global discussion that is happening right now. Things as it relates to COVID-19 has really put the world, say, heads over heels in terms of looking at things that ordinarily might have been, swept to the side. However, poultry is not just a local discussion, Regionally, we're also seeing quite a as it relates to local productions within the various islands. And so we are not alone in the state of what is happening now as it relates to agricultural production. Now, specific to poultry, as one can appreciate, there is definitely a buzz happening in Grenada related to the industry. Pre-COVID-19, we have well been on a set path to develop and commercialize the poultry sector in the agricultural, industrial, quite a lot of stumbling blocks along the way, COVID-19 being a very major stumbling block. However, as an association, we remain steadfast, we remain focused, and we remain committed to ensuring that our farmers and our producers are allowed to produce, keep on producing the quality which they're currently doing, and to ensure that we ramp up production and make food available. We are in the forefront, working along with stakeholders, the industry stakeholders, and most importantly, the government of Grenada, to which we recently had a meeting. And I must say that it was a very fruitful discussion, and the meeting was very, very fruitful in terms of planning and looking at ways to implement positive developmental circumstances and developmental processes for both the association and where our producers will be going.
Anything from that meeting that you are at liberty to disclose as it relates to forward planning?
Well, what I can say at this point is that there's a concerted effort by both the government of Grenada and the association to work together to find creative solutions for our future development. Now, the government of Grenada has, as was announced in a previous interview, that they have given their commitment to our poultry farmers through the association to see the industry develop correctly. Currently, that there's a lot being put together so that we can try to secure the farmers, secure the industry. As you can appreciate, not much more can be discussed in terms of deliberations as we develop various processes and so to secure the industry moving forward.
You hinted, Jason, that of course ultimately the purpose, one of the objectives of the association is to ensure that productivity remains at an optimum level. Give me a sense of, allow me to appreciate what has been happening in terms of production level. Have the farmers been able, in terms of what's happening in the marketplace?
Okay. Well, just to first highlight that we want to say thank you to all of the Grenadian public who has so strongly supported our farmers, who has so strongly supported the association during this very rough and difficult time. We do appreciate your support through your kind words, through your generosity, and also through your support by continuing to buy local. When persons go to their supermarkets, their place of purchase for their local, for meat and other forms of protein, including eggs, that you continue to support our local producers. And that is what really matters, especially during this time. Now, to appreciate what is really happening on the ground in terms of the poultry sector, one has to just take a little gander back about a year or so, and you would realize that there has been a health buzz that has grown throughout Grenada. Persons are very cognizant of the type of foods they consume, what they put into their bodies, what they give to their loved ones. And so understanding that a product that you can trace, you can track, and that you know the history of is something that became important to shoppers today. We have seen an increase in the demand for local chicken. There has been a demand locally. This is not a phenomenon that is only, it's isolated to Grenada, but it's something that we're seeing across the region. And as this trend picks up and continues to grow, we do anticipate to see local production having to meet that demand, because as demand increases, we have to increase our production. To date, I could be pleasantly surprised to say that we cannot meet the local demand currently. And our farmers are increasing their production, but as one can appreciate, to increase production is not only just buying young chicks and growing them, but there's a whole lot of logistical things that have to be put into place to ensure that increase is sustainable. And we are currently working along with financial institutions to help support our farmers, the government of Grenada, and other stakeholders to help bolster up the needs that our farmers and our producers have, so that we can make the products available for the long.
We seem to be having some bandwidth issues with Jason on his end. But let me ask you, Jason, if you still hear me, and I hope you can. You made reference to your inability to meet the demand of the local market. Is it a case that you have an excessively high demand level that is coupled by low, while of course it is improving? Is it that based on where the association is at in terms of the amount of farmers, that there's not enough farmers to support the demand on the market? Or is it that you're just generally having an increase in consumption levels and patterns?
Okay, well, there is a combination of circumstances that we're experiencing in terms of the demand plus the supply matter of our chicken consumption. That importation situation comes at a particular price. Historically, imported meats into the country, it's always cheaper than what you can purchase for what has been produced locally. There are factors of production that cannot be ignored. And in many ways, it is almost impossible for us to produce meats and other products locally that can compete with the foreign imported goods. However, the factors where demand are concerned that has mainly positively influenced persons purchasing the local chicken, irrespective of the fact that the price is a bit higher. It's the fact of health and also the fact of patriotism. I must say that our public have been very much so conscious of health-related matters and have chosen, and I say that quite endearingly, that persons have chosen to turn to local meats because they trust what the local farmers are doing that would enable them to have a healthy, safe product. Also, we also look at the fact that even though it might have been at a slightly higher price point, but persons are recognizing that they prefer to spend a little bit more upfront than to pay for it down the road at the doctor's office. So we are seeing that part of the phenomena as it relates to our demand. Logistics as it relates to the supply, where we're having shortages of supply, as one can appreciate, the agricultural sector is a very demanding one, and it requires quite a lot of input. Over the years, the poultry sector has gradually been growing and has gradually been gaining more ground within the local context. However, one can appreciate that everything that is needed to develop farms and to grow farms, almost 80% of those inputs have to be imported into the country. Those imported goods have to be sourced, have to be paid for, have to be implemented, and quite a lot of development has to happen in terms of to accommodate growth and development. And at that rate, also farms have to be expanded. That requires farmers to clear new lands. They need to build new buildings. They need to have technical input to ensure that structures are correctly positioned and all of that, and that the equipment necessary to service the animals in quantum is all put together. These things take time. So even though we have a higher demand, it means that it takes, in some cases, as much as 12 months for farmers to effectively fully react to the demand that they have of the day. So we are in a catching up position, but at some point the industry will catch up to sustain production in large volumes. But our situation is that we have farmers which are committed, producers which are committed, stakeholders which are committed, and we have a growth which is currently happening. And so though we're not where we would like to be, but I guarantee you that every day we have more and more production that is happening in Grenada.
And I understand that, but let's juxtapose this conversation, Jason, because at the end of the day, it comes down to sustainability of the business, what's happening. How do you deal, and you quite clearly articulated the challenge there is where the imported product, 90% of the time, it's not all 100% of the time, comes in cheaper. What sort of support have you received from government? Because given that persons more and more, individuals are finding it much more difficult to find disposable income, and we understand the economic challenge, and persons having to weigh it in the balance to go local at this price yes, I have my health concerns, but you're thinking, this is what I have to deal with. How do you balance the two? But start first by addressing, if you can, the support that you get from government, because government too has been on a trust to promote eating local, eating healthy.
Well, what I can say is that the government of Grenada, through the Ministry of Agriculture, for the development and for the growth of the poultry sector, as was alluded to in the meeting which was recently held, the Minister of Agriculture has indicated just this point. Now, we can appreciate that government is placed in a very tasking position with limited resources as a means of seeing the sector roll forward. I must say that at this juncture, that it is a growing relationship between the government of Grenada and the Poultry Association to find mechanisms and find ways to best and evenly support all of our poultry producers. In this equation, there requires quite a lot of change, both at the governmental level both at our production level. I want to indicate something that has always been left in the balance. A lot of people keep talking in terms of farmers, and farmers are sometimes in the past looked down upon, and they're seen as not very professional. They're seen like people who don't really know what they do. They just slap things together. I want to indicate that that is a very, very negative and false connotation that has been placed on farmers. And we have very, very skilled individuals within the industry. However, what has to come as a realization to our farmers, and I'm directly now speaking to our farmers and producers, that we cannot expect our government to pump in resources into our industry to help develop our industry, and we as an individual do not want to do what is necessary to ensure that we become part of the system. No, there are some clear understandings that has to be clear. One, farmers have to ensure that their operation is commercialized. So you have to do what is necessary to move from a self-sufficiency type operation that you need to business, because you cannot expect for your issues and for our problems to be tracked or for our assistance to be given when there's no record that you even exist within the whole purview of a system. Many of our farmers are not even registered with the Ministry of Agriculture to say that I am a bona fide farmer, right? So there's no records. So in this case, we as a farming organization, we have recognized that we have to encourage our producers to start from their end to start preparing so that they can become a commercial entity. We need to pay our taxes so that the government can have resources so that they can help us also. We need to ensure that we document what we do so that we can track, and so that when needs arise, that when the government comes to assist, that there are actual formulas and there are resources in terms of documentation that can be relied upon where you're currently at, and this is what we're willing to do for you. It makes it extremely difficult at this point for both the association and the government to give recommendation on behalf of our farming community to be very specific to help everyone. So we have to go through a number of changes, we have to go through a number of reality checks, and we have to now go for the part where we have to develop our systems correctly now so that any future pandemics, any future issues that may come, that we can be easily has been assisted. Our farming community requires the same thing. However, we as an industry, we as farmers, we as producers, so that we can become part of the system. And so it's notwithstanding that there are, of course, still responsibilities on the part of the government and responsibility on the part of other stakeholders to ensure that certain things are done to protect the farmers. These are also issues that are being raised and are being tabled. But of course, we from the end of the association are seeing that we cannot only just throw stones over at one end or the next, but we have to take a holistic approach, and we have to develop not just ourselves as an association, but each and every farmer, and then we can take most of our problems and concerns to the government as a unified body who is ready for this.
You've summarized that quite nicely, and at the same time, I'm getting a sense that some of the challenges that you have is not unique to just the Poultry Association, but it's some of the challenges that encompasses the entire agricultural sector, where it is not seen as a business, but it is seen more like a hustle. And that culture has to change, no doubt, in order to go forward. But let me ask you before we have just a few more minutes before we wrap. In terms of the amount of known poultry farmers and those that are registered, can we get some stats? Because that was quite alarming, though, in terms of most of the folks, and I'm assuming that's what gives rise to that sort of laissez-faire attitude in terms of how business is done. So what is the total number of farmers as compared to those that are actually registered?
Okay. So from our most recent experience when it came to the feed-related matter, it gave us at the association an opportunity to really document quite a lot of persons, because we actually had almost every farmer who was in need coming to us to secure feeds for their animals. So persons who were not originally in our system, persons who had not interacted directly with the organization before, we had an opportunity to do some data capture. And I must say that we had in excess of 1,000 individuals who have interacted for feed-related matter over the May period with the association. However, within our system of persons who are registered, and we can say who are currently financial with the association, we have less than 200 persons who are actively registered. Now, within the Ministry of Agriculture, persons who register for farmer's ID to be recognized as a farmer, where the poultry is concerned, I cannot give an accurate figure, but we had estimates of roughly just over 200 to 250 individuals who would have been practicing poultry farming and have an ID from government. So we're seeing here a disparity of more than 750 individuals who are currently operating in the poultry sector, but are not registered or are not known officially in any format or so. So when we hear the loud cries, you can appreciate that the cries are bona fide. However, it is very difficult to address when you do not have persons logged within your system and persons who keep their information current. So this disparity is something that it needs to be dealt with quite urgently. And I want to appeal to farmers that this is not the time to be scared. No one is coming after you to shut down your operation or to tax you under the water. What we need to do is first and foremost recognize you, and so that we can assist you to develop and to grow what you're currently doing. There is no reason why you should be hiding in the shadows and hoping to be more successful. You really need to come out into the open so that you can operate freely. The association has been working with a number of stakeholders, including the Ministry of Trade, GIDC, the Grenada Development Bank, and several other entities to develop assistant programs where we can do educational programs so farmers can learn how to do basic bookkeeping, how to manage your farm as a business, how to develop your paperwork, bookwork, and all other forms of management resources. So we are putting things from the association point of view together so that we can invite our farmers to come in and have productive development through education and other forms of extension services with our stakeholders.
Thank you, Jason, and I realizing that it's a conversation that we literally just getting into the meat of it. But certainly, the hope is that this would not be a one-off conversation between you and I, but it would be a continuous opportunity to put the industry under the microscope for holistic development, so that, of course, we as a people, as a nation, we can grow and develop. And of course, certainly we do hope that we say congratulations to you and the association and the job that you're doing. All the best to you. We're speaking there with...
Thank you so very much, Joseph.
All the best to you, Jason. We're speaking there with Jason Phillip, president of the Grenada Poultry Association. We're getting ready to wrap up with you. Of course, I want to say goodbye to our listeners, our viewers on GBN Channel 7 and Channel 11, Channel 20, if you're in cable. We're getting ready to get ready, moving towards our lunchtime edition. Once I break from you on television, you would go on to your regular programming. But the midday edition comes up in just under 5 minutes at the top of the hour. It certainly allows me the opportunity to say goodbye to our viewers and our listeners simultaneously, those on Classic and those also on Hot 98, our sister station. The weekend is literally just around the corner. Want to wish you the best. Get the opportunity to rest if you can. Focus on some of the things that is important to you. Reminding you again, COVID-19, it is in the air. We continue to encourage you to practice good, safe hygiene, wearing of the mask, that is of critical importance, and of course do whatever you can, the social distancing protocols, ensure that you engage all of those. From all of us here at the GBN, I say thanks. I had a great week with you. The good Lord's willing, we rest for the weekend, but of course, you know what happens with absence, it makes the heart grow fonder. So long, everybody. Have a great one. Enjoy your lunch.